Welcome to the video lecture on lower respiratory tract infections and laboratory diagnosis of respiratory tract infections. So we're going to deal about etiological agents of lower respiratory tract infections, the major lower respiratory tract infections, the factors contributing to their occurrence. We're going to understand the mechanism by which they happen and know the laboratory diagnosis of respiratory tract infections. So lower respiratory tract infections are the most common cause of community acquired infections and they carry a high mortality and morbidity rate. They include infections of trachea and bronchi like laryngotracheobronchitis or croup bronchitis, which can be acute, chronic or tracheobronchitis and bronchiolitis. Infections of lung include pneumonia, tuberculosis, lung abscess and empyema. Looking into the pathogens, the viruses include influenza, parainfluenza, human metapneumovirus, respiratory syncytial virus, adenovirus, coronavirus, and viruses like measles, varicella zoster, Epstein-Barr virus. Bacteria include Streptococcus pneumoniae, Haemophilus influenza, Moraxella catarrhalis, Klebsiella pneumoniae, E. coli, and other gram-negative rods like Enterobacter. Chlamydia pneumoniae, Chlamydia psittaci, Mycoplasma pneumoniae, Legionella pneumophila, Mycobacterium tuberculosis, Nocardia, Bordetella pertussis, and variety of anaerobes like Fusobacterium, Bacteroid species, and Peptostreptococcus. Fungal agents are Cryptococcus neoformans, Nemocystis gyrovesi, Aspergillus species, Candida species, Zygomycetes like Mucorrhizopus, dimorphic fungi like Histoplasma, Blastomyces, Penicillium, etc. Looking into the pathogenesis, the pathogens, be it virus or bacteria, they enter either by droplet inhalation or by aspiration of gastric content or oropharyngeal secretions, or via bloodstream from extrapulmonary site, followed by an inflammatory reactions which mediated by bradykinin and prostaglandin, which includes edema, swelling and increased mucus production. There is also airway narrowing or obstruction, which results in air trapping and inadequate oxygenation of pulmonary blood. Looking into croup or laryngotracheobronchitis, it's an acute viral illness, predominantly viral in origin, which is characterized by marked swelling of subglottic region of the larynx, and it's common among infants. The most common viral agent is the parainfluenza virus, and other agents include influenza virus, respiratory syncytial virus, Haemophilus influenza, Corynebacterium diphtheria, and Bordetella pertussis. The symptoms include fever, cough which is barking and non-productive, and there's hoarseness and inspiratory stridor. Looking into bronchitis and bronchiolitis, it's inflammation of the bronchial tree. When the bronchi are involved, it's known as bronchitis, and when the bronchioles are involved, it's known as bronchiolitis. These infections are usually preceded by upper respiratory tract infection. Bronchitis includes acute bronchitis, chronic bronchitis, and tracheobronchitis. And the bronchiolitis is more common among infants, and it's caused mainly by respiratory syncytial virus. And the symptoms include fever, cough, dyspnea, tachypnea, and wheeze. Wheeze is an abnormal whistling sound during breathing because of the narrowing of the lower airways. Looking into the pneumonia, it's inflammation of pulmonary parenchyma where the alveoli are filled with fluid or pus, making it difficult to breathe, and it's associated with significant morbidity and mortality. You can see in the picture the alveoli are filled with the fluid or the pus, and there's no proper gas exchange. Looking at the classification of pneumonia, based on the origin, it can be primary or secondary. Primary is the infection in the lung itself, whereas secondary, where it is hematogenous and the infection is coming from an extrapulmonary site. Based on the duration of infection, it can be acute or chronic. And based on the anatomical location, it can be bronchopneumonia, lobar pneumonia, and interstitial pneumonia. Bronchopneumonia is a patchy consolidation of the large airways, whereas lobar pneumonia it is a consolidation of the lung, which is demarcated by the borders of segments or lobes. Interstitial pneumonia involves interstitial spaces. Based on the site of acquisition, it can be community-acquired pneumonia or hospital-acquired pneumonia. Community-acquired pneumonia can be typical, atypical, or aspiration pneumonia. Looking to hospital-acquired pneumonia, it occurs 48 hours after the admission and it was not present or incubating upon admission. Such type of infection is known as hospital-acquired pneumonia. Looking into atypical pneumonia agents, they are Mycoplasma pneumoniae, Chlamydophila pneumoniae, Chlamydia psittaci, Coxiella burnetii, Legionella pneumophila, and viruses like influenza virus, adenovirus, and respiratory syncytial virus. Why is it atypical? Because the clinical manifestations are a little different from the usual clinical features of pneumonia. The cough is non-productive and the patient seems all right, and his chest x-ray shows lot of changes in the lung. Looking into aspiration pneumonia, which is because of aspiration of gastric contents or aspiration of contaminated water. It is mainly due to organisms like Enterobacteriaceae members, Pseudomonas, and anaerobes like Fusobacterium, Bacteroids, and Peptostreptococcus. Looking at the clinical features of pneumonia, the patient suffers from high fever and chills. There is dyspnea, that is difficulty in breathing, tachypnea, increased heart rate, chest pain when he breathes deeply or coughs, cyanosis, which is bluish discoloration of the skin, and there is usually productive cough with purulent sputum. But the exception is atypical pneumonia where there is non-productive cough. Looking at the features of pneumonia, the pneumococcus, when it causes pneumonia, the features include pleuritic pain and the sputum is rusty in color. The pneumonia caused by Klebsiella pneumoniae shows a red currant jelly sputum. The sputum is very thick, viscous and red in color. It's usually seen in alcoholic patients, this infection with Klebsiella. Next, in Mycoplasma pneumonia and Legionella pneumophila, which are atypical agents, they present with non-productive cough. And in Legionella, there is a history of exposure to air conditioners or hotel shower. Looking into Mycobacterium tuberculosis, it's characterized by upper lobe consolidation, hilar lymphadenopathy on X-ray, and there's a hemoptysis in the patient. Let us look into the laboratory diagnosis of respiratory tract infections. First of all, the specimens. The upper respiratory tract specimens include throat swab, pseudomembrane if it's present, nasopharyngeal swab, nasopharyngeal aspirate and blood sample. The lower respiratory tract specimens include sputum, bronchoalveolar lavage, endotracheal aspirate or lung tissue obtained by biopsy and blood samples. And looking into the transport, these specimens should be immediately transported to the lab. In case of Fastidious bacteria, the transport media used are Ames and Stewart's transport media, and for the viruses, invariably viral transport media should be used. In case of any delay less than 72 hours, the specimen should be stored at 4 degrees centigrade and should be shipped on wet ice. And if there's a delay of more than 72 hours expected, then this sample should be stored frozen at 70 degrees centigrade and should be shipped on dry ice. So let us look at the specimen collection, especially sputum sample collection. It's preferred to collect a early morning sample, so the patient should be asked to wash his mouth with water, stand against the wall, and cough out or expectorate deep sputum sample, deeply expectorated sputum sample into the container. It should not be saliva. Whereas looking to the throat swab, you can see the picture here. You explain the procedure to the patient, make him sit on a chair in presence of good light. You're using a tongue depressor, and with a throat swab, you're collecting this material from the tonsils and the posterior pharynx. You're rubbing the throat swab against these structures and without touching the other structures in the oral cavity. And it's preferred to collect 2 swabs, one for staining and one for culture. Looking into the per nasal swab or nasopharyngeal swab, a flexible swab is inserted through the nostril up to 5 to 6 centimeters to collect a nasopharyngeal specimen, which is also known as per nasal swab. Collection of nasopharyngeal aspirate is with the help of nasal catheter. You can see in the picture. It's introduced and the nasopharyngeal aspirate is collected by a suction apparatus into the container. And bronchoalveolar lavage is collected with help of bronchoscope. Then looking into the processing, the first is direct microscopy, gram stain of the sputum. It is very important to look into the quality of sputum specimen. Is it a real well expectorated sputum sample or saliva? If it's a good sample, then under the low power field of microscope, it shows pus cells more than 25 and epithelial cells less than 5. And when you detect gram-positive cocaine pairs which are lanceolate and capsulated in case of pneumococcus, or it can be gram-negative bacilli like Klebsiella and Haemophilus influenza, or gram-negative cocci like Moraxella. Looking at a gram stain of throat swab, it's only useful to detect Candida in case of thrush and fusospirochetal complex in case of Vincent's angina. Ziehl-Neelsen staining is useful to detect acid-fast bacilli of Mycobacterium tuberculosis and Nocardia. Albert stain of the throat swab is useful to detect metachromatic granules of Corynebacterium diphtheria. Fungal stains like KOH mount can be performed on the sputum, chalcophore white stain can be performed, or methenamine silver stain is useful to detect the cysts of Pneumocystis jirovecii. Direct fluorescent antibody test of nasopharyngeal aspirate is very useful to detect viruses, and we can also do H&E stain or other stains of lung tissue to detect viral inclusions of adenovirus or parainfluenza and also the fungal agents. So these are the pictures: gram stain showing pneumococcus, gram positive cocci, lanceolate and capsulated. The next picture is the AFB stain, the second picture, which showing the red bacilli. Then the Albert stain of the throat swab showing metachromatic granules of Corynebacterium diphtheria, fungal stain showing Aspergillus, and Gomori's methamine silver showing cysts of Pneumocystis jirovecii. This is a gram stain of throat swab showing fusospirochetal complex. You can see the fusobacterium, which are long gram-negative bacteria, and the spiral-shaped bacteria, which is the Treponema vincenti. Further moving on, culture includes sampling placing the sample on blood agar, chocolate agar and McConkey agar, which is very useful to detect pathogens like Streptococcus pyogenes, Haemophilus influenza and Klebsiella pneumoniae. In case of Corynebacterium diphtheria, the media used is Loeffler's serum slope. For Mycobacterium tuberculosis, the media is Lowenstein-Jensen agar. For Legionella, we have to use buffered charcoal yeast extract agar. For Mycoplasma, it should be Pleuropneumonia-like organism media. And Sabrode's dextrose agar can be used for the yeasts or fungi, and cell lines are used for viruses. We use shell vial culture. So how do we identify the culture isolate? In case of bacteria, based on colony morphology, gram stain biochemical tests. And in case of fungi, it can be LPCB mount, and for the yeast like Candida, it can be germ tube test, carbohydrate assimilation test, and chlamydospore formation. So below in this picture, you can see Streptococcus pyogenes, the beta hemolytic colonies, and it's susceptible to bacitracin disc. And for the Haemophilus influenza, we can look for X and V factor requirement. Similarly, these are alpha hemolytic colonies of pneumococcus, and fried egg colonies of mycoplasma are seen in the next picture, and pneumococcus demonstrating optogen susceptibility, and lactose fermenting mucoid colonies of Klebsiella pneumonia are seen on the McConkey agar. These are the viral cell lines. After the growth, you can see the cytopathic effect. In case of adenovirus grown in rhesus monkey kidney cell lines, we can demonstrate the grape-like clusters by adenovirus, and respiratory syncytial virus exhibits a cytopathic effect of syncytium formation. And we can also perform direct fluorescent antibody test on shell vial culture grown viruses. Further moving on to serology, both antibody and antigen detection. The method is ELISA for viruses and chlamydia, mycoplasma and variety of fastidious bacteria, Paul Bernal test for Epstein-Barr virus, Alex gel precipitation test to detect toxin of Corynebacterium diphtheria, cold agglutinin test for mycoplasma, though it is very non-specific. So we can go for antibody detection with ELISA, or Legionella antigen detection in urine by rapid tests like the CART test, lateral flow assays. And the best method is the molecular method, PCR, to detect the viral nucleic acid or to detect atypical agents, Bordetella, etc. Looking to preventive measures, the best is vaccination. They are available for influenza, for the pneumococcus, BCG vaccine for tuberculosis, and appropriate infection control programs have to be run in the hospital. and use of personal protective equipment while dealing with these patients, and isolation measures, isolating patients with contagious disease like diphtheria, influenza, corona in appropriate wards or isolation rooms, and respiratory etiquette, using taking care while sneezing and coughing, covering the nose while sneezing, etc. Thank you.